Hi, my name is Ellie Brocklehurst, and with me today is my beautiful friend and co-host Beck Nadalo, and together we are full-timers. As two working mums with small children and hubbies in tow, we've come to the realisation that the best way to define us, and a lot of people out there, is that we're full-time. Full-time mums, full-time wives, full-time employees, friends and daughters. And with all that full-time comes with it a lot of weight, obstacles and constraints, but also a lot of great opportunities. We've been searching for somewhere to validate our feelings about what it takes to be a woman in today's world. So rather than continue that search, we thought, let's start it. Welcome to the Full-Timers Club.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's edition of the Full-Timers Club. I'm Beck.
I'm Ellie.
And you are probably wondering why we are dressed up
So dressed up
in our kind of party dresses.
Yeah.
So this is an episode that I think it's close to both of us, but particularly myself in that it is October, which also means that it's Frocktober. Frocktober is an amazing month-long charity event from the Ovarian Cancer Research Foundation in Australia.
Right.
And they are all about raising funds for ovarian cancer and the research of it, because most people don't know there isn't a lot of research into ovarian cancer, and it is an incredibly, just an awful disease that affects a lot more women than people would originally think. So this episode, we wanted to talk about ovarian cancer. We wanted to talk about all different types of cancers that we've had experience with, that our friends have had experience with, and how I think being a full-timer impacts your own health and your ability to put your health first, as we've both found. Yeah. But if you don't mind, can I talk a little bit about ovarian cancer?
Of course, please.
There's actually a lot that people don't know. And the reason why I get quite passionate about ovarian cancer is my cousin Tammy passed away 5 years ago. She was 40 when she passed away after 5 years of battling ovarian cancer.
So 35 when she was diagnosed?
35 when she was diagnosed. Wow. And she had a little one.
Okay.
And she fought it for 5 years, going through all different types of treatment. And the thing that gets me so angry about it is she went to her doctor on 3 separate occasions complaining of symptoms, and on 3 occasions they were dismissed as period pains.
Oh, seriously.
So this is why it's such a horrible disease. And I'm going to read some statistics. So there is no early detection test. So unlike cervical cancer, where you can have pap smear or you can do a mammogram, for ovarian cancer there is no test.
Why? Is that just they haven't created one?
Or
it's too difficult to diagnose? Okay.
They haven't created one, and the OCRF is, all of the funds that they raise is in service of creating an early detection test. And they're getting close.
Exciting.
So there is no early detection test. The symptoms are really vague. So they're things like cramps, bloating, feeling full, peeing a little bit more. So they're things that I'm feeling right now.
Yeah.
So you can easily see why it's put down to things like, it's period pain, or it's endometriosis or something like that. And so as a result of that, only 70% of the cases that are diagnosed are actually diagnosed in the late stages. Oh. So this is what happened to Tammy. By the time she had insisted on her doctor taking this further, she was so far down the line, it wasn't great. And to that point, the survival rate is 49%. And 80% of women that survive it have a chance that it will come back in the future.
Oh my God.
So it's just fucking horrible.
It's super negative.
It's awful. And the thing that I found quite hard to read, I didn't know about, is that many women who go in for an exploratory surgery will wake up having had a full hysterectomy, because when they go in there, they don't realise how bad it is because there's not a lot of signs of it. Oh. And the doctors end up doing a full hysterectomy.
Oh, I can't imagine.
So it's a heartbreaking disease. Yeah. They're all heartbreaking. But I think because it probably touched me and my family in such a close way with Tammy, this was why we wanted to frock up.
Yeah.
And donate.
We should frock up for all occasions, but
totally.
This one in particular is important to frock up for.
Absolutely. And, I'll be making a donation to OCRF in name of Tammy for greater research, and hopefully everyone who's listening will. And also, I think this entire episode is really then listening to our bodies and, learning from those experiences. And I know you've had a pretty personal experience.
Yeah.
So I'd love to ask you about that.
You were kind of right by my side for the first instance. So I have a very long family history of melanoma, and my maternal grandmother and my paternal grandfather both died of melanoma. So my family and I were all incredibly aware that melanomas are in our family. So I've always been very conscious of it, and I'm covered in moles. Like I think even a doctor once said to me, like, you are a walking melanoma. Like I've just got that kind of skin that is just ripe for melanomas, and it's particularly because of the irregularity of my moles. So if they're kind of odd shaped or they're raised, then you're more likely or more susceptible to getting melanomas as the growth. So I had this very obvious little black dark mark on my back that was attached to a mole. And I went home to Australia on one of my visits. I was 29 at the time. 29, it was 2019. Went back to Australia, and Mum said that is 100% something you need to get removed. And I was like, yeah, I will. And I got back to Singapore, and, you know, life got a bit in the way. And I remember thinking, it was Will who was like, you need to get that removed. And I was like, yeah, actually, I'm going to look into insurance.
Yeah.
Because I just know how well, once you do one thing, if you don't get it checked off, then, you know, you won't be paid for later. And for like 2 or 3 months, I kept putting it off, trying to find insurance, making that my reason not to do it. I don't know if in the back of my mind I was scared. I don't really think I was. I think actually just I was a bit lazy. Anyway, eventually got it off, and yeah, it was a melanoma in situ, which is actually, of all the kind of melanomas you can get, it's the best kind. It's really surface level, but it sent me into quite a tailspin because I was, as I said, 29, just about to get married.
I remember this. I remember the phone call.
Yeah,
you were crying, saying
I came
melanoma.
out to the office, remember? And then we sat in the office, and I was just in tears, and I was so shocked because I just thought, I'm so young. Like, is this actually what happens to 29-year-olds? Like, yes, I know in Australia it's rife, right? And we all in Australia, as Australians, need to get regularly checked. But it was just that I felt like my life flashed before my eyes of like, I think at this point I didn't know. So it was probably a bit dramatic back then. So anyway, I got it removed, and they took out a massive chunk of my back, and all of it was clear. So that was really reassuring. And then I was told by a doctor at the Melanoma Institute, you are a walking melanoma. You need to get checked every 3 months. You need to be rigorous about it.
3 months?
Every
That's
3 months.
Lot.
It's a lot. And it's expensive because I wasn't covered for insurance. And so therefore I had to pay out of pocket.
Yeah.
But now that I've learnt that, you know, no money is too much money. So I got checked, and I had been clear for ages, and I went back to Australia again in the winter, and there's a little mark on my back that kind of went dry. And I said to Will, I was like, I think I've got like a scab or something. And anyway, he looked at it and he was like, no, it's like just your mole's gone quite like scaly. And I was like, that's really weird. And because I noticed everything in my body, I didn't know what it was. Came back to Singapore, and it went really soft. And I thought, is the humidity doing something? Like, is it because in Australia it went dry? Anyway, went to my skin doctor. She looked at it. She was like, I don't know, maybe. I said, look, just whip it out. Let's just take it out. I'll feel better once it's out. It was level 2. So it's actually like a way worse version of melanoma. And at that point, it is gone through the first skin layer. And the next stage is level 3, and that's your bloodstream. So it is a very fine line between being something like serious and being something like deadly serious.
Yeah.
And again, I just had Johnny, and I was just in this tailspin of like, I'm had my second melanoma in 3 years. Like this is really, really, really scary.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think the thing that I'm now reflecting on, and I said this to you earlier, is I've been solo parent all week, and it's been wonderful, and I've loved it, and Will's doing his thing in Europe, but every time I have a bath, I keep being like, I haven't done my checkup. I need to go do my checkup.
How long has it been since you've done your checkup?
8 months.
Okay, you need to go.
I know, but this is what
happens.
Exactly. And I keep finding myself going like, you need to go book that, and then I just forget, or something gets in the way, but no, I think this occasion, you doing this, making us dress up, you're right. I need to go, and I'll get off this session, and I'll go and call the doctor and book.
Go and make your appointment.
But I think we often forget that if you leave it a little bit too late, like Tammy did, you're forever going to kick yourself.
Yeah. Or you go like Tammy did, and your doctor dismisses it. And she always said, just before she passed, she actually did a speech at the Frocktober event, and her whole thing was, I knew something was wrong. And you've
intuitive about
just
it, yeah.
got to push. You've got to push your doctor, even when they tell you it's okay and you think there's something not right.
Yeah.
Get a second opinion. Go and see someone else. Like, don't stop. And I always struggle because I'm like, at what point do you get paranoid? And is it like you just got to take the doctor's word? But I think women know their bodies.
Yeah.
You know when something's not right.
I think that's what's scary about melanomas. And
Yeah.
I only speak from my own experience. So I'm sure there are people who have the symptoms, but I had literally, there was absolutely no indicator except for the touch of the actual growth itself that made me feel like anything was wrong.
Yeah.
Which is why it's even more scary, because then you just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there's like, until you told me about it, I didn't really know melanomas were actually like that bad a thing. I kind of, I don't know why. I just thought it was like a mole that you had removed because they were kind of bad. But I didn't realize there was like layer 1, layer 2, and then it goes into your bloodstream and actually it's as bad as any other cancer.
So I wish I had a stat. And again, I always feel like I do this with our podcast, but there is a lot of people when they pass away, like both my grandparents didn't know they had they died of melanoma. Yeah. So it's actually usually the first thing, and then you get a secondary. Yeah. Because it's undetectable. Yeah. Unless you're looking at your body 24/7. So I encourage everyone, please, just anything you feel unsure about, anything that looks suspicious or irregular on your body, just go get it checked out, get it cut out. You feel a lot better for it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, tell me about yours, because again, I think I wasn't here for this actually. I think I just arrived after.
Yeah, we didn't know each other. So I came to Singapore in start of 2015. And just as a background, so both of my grandmothers have had breast cancer. One passed away from it, and one had it in her 40s and had a double mastectomy and lived until she was 94, I think. So great. And then with, Tammy with ovarian cancer. So a family history of things. Yeah.
Women cancers.
Yeah. So I just always, I don't think I've resigned myself, but I'm like, it might happen. Hence why now, like every year I go for an ultrasound, even though it's quite young. My doctor now is like, I think we need to start you on mammograms. You're meant to start after 40, but let's just start now. You're 38. So I guess then any other cancer though hasn't really been on my mind. It's always been breast cancer. So when I got here 2015 from New York, where in New York, I was there for 3.5 years. I didn't even see a single doctor in 3.5 years. Like you just don't go to the doctor in the US. And hence why I always think, my God, how many diseases would be going undetected? Yeah. Because people don't go because you don't have insurance. Yeah. Whole other story. Anyway, so I got to Singapore, and it was actually my now husband, Andrew, who was the one that kept telling me, go to the doctor, go to the doctor. So
just for a checkup?
No. So I was having a particular symptom, which just like irregular bleeding, basically.
Okay. Yeah. Spotting.
Yeah. And it was usually after sex. Okay. And anyway, so I went to see a doctor, and thank God I saw this particular lady because she actually delivered Roman, and I love her because she's so cautious, but in the context of birth was almost too cautious. Okay. But in the context of health, she's perfect because she was like, something's not right. And so I had pap smears and stuff. Pap smears were all clear. Okay. But she was like, something like you just shouldn't be getting this kind of bleeding. And anyways, long story short, she found a tumour very, very high up on my cervix, which was in the form of a lump. And she only could see that, like it wouldn't even be detected by a pap smear because it was so high up. And she only detected it through an internal exam and then biopsy, which confirmed that it was very, very early stages cancer. So I had that cut out, didn't need any treatment or anything, basically shortened your cervix. As I now know, it's quite common for women. Yeah. And then every 6 months would have checkups until probably to year 5, and then everything was fine, and now I'm at once a year. But again, so the thing that I learned from that is I probably put that off for 6 months because I had pictures or I had like meetings or there was always something.
Just life got in the way.
Life gets in the way, full-timer. I didn't even have kids a kid at that time. But life gets in the way, and I think you just make excuses for why you're too busy or why this is not a good time or whatever. But we've got to stop doing that. We just have to. And I'm grateful that I ended up having a doctor who, I wasn't in the US where they would have just gone, you're completely fine, your pap smear is clear, come back in 2 years. And thankfully I was here in Singapore. But yeah, it's a great reminder that you need to schedule these things in. And the same way that you protect your Botox appointment or your facial appointment, which I protect, you've got to protect these sorts of appointments as well.
Yeah. I was talking to my mum actually the other day about someone she knows in her life who has had some kind of scan to indicate that there is definitely a growth. And I was like, oh, okay, well, what's like, and they were like, you've got to go see an oncologist. Anyway, I was like, oh, well, what did the oncologist say? And she's like, oh, no, the waiting time's 4 months.
No.
And I was like, if someone is told you need to go see an oncologist, you need to go and see an oncologist. But there's no, and you know, she's obviously not in the private system and therefore she does actually have to wait. But that's where I go,
that's heartbreaking.
So glad in Singapore that we have the luxury of being able to see someone the next day.
Yeah.
Like when I did get the diagnosis that it was a level 2 melanoma, the doctor called me and was like, I've got you into the oncology in a week.
Yeah.
It was probably a bit dramatic. I spoke to my cousin who was a plastic surgeon and who specializes in melanomas, and he was like, not necessary. Your margins are fine.
Yeah.
You got it out. But knowing that, and I wonder if, you know, you and I are very lucky to be in this country and therefore we're probably more relaxed about getting checked because it's like not that kind of sense of urgency. But I wonder, and I'd love to know if any of our listeners have any kind of point of view on this, if in Australia it's worse because you've got to wait to see somebody. And as you said, that do they get the right checks because there's not enough doctors to actually do the analysis. And I don't know, I just feel like are we lucky that we're here?
I definitely think we are, because I also think that Singapore is a system, and you see this during childbirth, like you go to the doctor every 4 weeks for checkups. It is a very cautious system, and I think the natural mentality here is very risk adverse, and so therefore it's like you don't leave anything to chance. Yeah. Hence why when you go to the doctor, the first thing they'll do is give you antibiotics. Yeah. I don't think in Australia it's that way. And to be fair, I haven't been in the Australian system for 15 years, so I don't know. I do have a very, 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 very dear friend who has just been diagnosed with breast cancer. Again, 41 years old, back home, went in for a routine scan, ends up having pretty... I think it's pretty serious. However, you know, there's a very, very high chance of survival and a very clear treatment plan. But I think from diagnosis to basically going in for treatment was a very short period. Yeah. Because by the time she told us, I think she'd already started chemo, and then we'll go straight in for double mastectomy very soon after. The thing with her, because she there's like a group of us girls here in Singapore who... We have a group chat, and there's this one particular day where I saw a voice message and it was a 5-minute voice message. And so I was like,
that's long.
Yeah. And she's, I mean, I always ask her because she's so hilarious. I'm like, can you send me a voice message? Because I treat it like a podcast and I'll listen to it on my way to work or something. But I just had this feeling this one day because I was like, 5 minutes in a group chat. Anyways, I then had another one of my best friends message me saying, I've just listened to it. Make sure you're in a private space when you listen. So I was just like, oh God. Anyways, and then she told us, and she was her usual amazing self, where she was like, it's okay guys, here's the treatment plan, here's everything. But the one thing she said to us, which all of us went and did afterwards, she was like, go and get yourself checked. Yeah. And every single one of us, like I literally hung up the phone, had a cry, and then made an appointment to go and have a scan. Yeah. And then sent my doctor to every single person, or one of my friends, even sent a note out to some other friends saying, please go and get your boobs checked. Yeah. Like we just, and I think this is a big thing. Even Andrew said, like, you have to, don't wait for your family or your doctor to remind you as friends and women and men. Yeah. Remind each other, like when you see each other and you go, how's your week been? How's everything going?
Have you had your boobs checked?
Part of the conversation should be, when did you last get a mammogram? Or when did you go and get a pap smear? Or whatever it might be. Yeah. But we need to look out for each other as well. Yeah. And tell these stories so that you are reminded to look after your health and yourself.
So I have another instance where that is exactly what has happened. One of our very good friends, Lachlan Keane, who used to live in Singapore actually for many years. I feel like you might have met him. He was a massive personality. Used to work at Salesforce for a bit. He was, anyway, he was amazing. He had that wedding in Paris. It was fantastic. I loved it. Anyway, sadly, he was diagnosed with bowel cancer when he was 36. And it was stage 3. So
Jesus.
immediately it was not a good diagnosis. And what was really difficult, I think, for him and everyone around him was that there were symptoms and probably a bit ignored, because the thing with men, which I don't know if Andrew's like this, and apologies to Will if I'm divulging too much, but my understanding is men actually have a lot of bowel issues. They have a lot of, I think hemorrhoids are quite common with men. Like, I think there's a lot of things where men...
I didn't know that.
Oh, ask Andrew, because Will seems to think it's super common for men to have bowel issues.
Okay.
Way more than women do. And so I think he put it down to having just male problems and kind of ignored it for a while. Anyway, he came up to Singapore, we went to Phuket, went out with the boys, and I think that next day he was like, nah, something's definitely not right. And anyway, it has sadly resulted in him having bowel cancer. And a year ago, almost to the day, sadly, he passed away. Yeah, I do that because it's a sad topic.
Okay.
The thing that was positive that has come from it is 2 things. One, every single boy that I know that knows him has gone and got a colonoscopy. Every single, like, I'm talking from the age of like 28 to kind of 45. People have found they've had polyps. People have found that, like, no one's been diagnosed with anything, but they've all realized that, like, you just you can't ignore these things.
Yeah.
And the thing that really shocked me is a stat that I found today, which is people born in 1990 and onwards have double the risk of colon cancer and quadruple the risk of rectal cancer compared to people in 1950s.
Wow.
That is a
Why?
So when this all happened, I did some kind of digging around and found that a lot of it is diet. It's the food, the processed food that we've eaten since the 90s, probably the roll-ups, probably the pizza shapes, like all the stuff that we've eaten that's heavily processed, has obviously affected our kind of our bowels and so now that it's known, there's this massive movement by the Lachlan Keane Foundation to address this and actually get people to test earlier, because in Australia, a lot of people aren't tested until like 50s or 60s. But again, now we've learned, especially with a lot of cancers now, a lot more younger people are being diagnosed. And so I think there's a big shift in the perception around don't wait, as you just said. And if there's anything that you're unsure about, it's definitely going and seeing a doctor.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
I don't... I remember when this happened. I didn't realize he was such a good friend of yours. So.
Yeah, it's and there's a lot of people up here who they've done like charity balls and golf days, and everyone's gone. And he was one of those kind of people that just brought like, we called him like the king of Singapore. Like, he brought everyone together. Yeah. And when Will and I first moved up, I think he was one of our very first friends.
Gosh, I'm so sorry.
So yeah, it's sad, and it's just, as I said, it's just a good reminder that you shouldn't leave it too late. And yes, we are busy, and yes, we've got shit on our plate, and you've got a lot to deal with. And I'm almost telling myself this right now, we need to be way more aware and in tune with our bodies. Yeah, and go and get checked.
Definitely, I think with all of it, like, early detection is just key, and the only way you get early detection is prioritizing yourself and your health and getting it checked and making those appointments and then protecting them. Like, when my friend had messaged me and I was like, oh crap, when did I have my last breast exam? And then I looked into my WhatsApp, because I've got them on WhatsApp. I had rescheduled it 8 months ago and never gone. So it means it was a year and 8 months since I'd had my scan, which is really bad given my family history. Yeah. But life gets in the way. Full-timer. Yeah. Like, you put everyone else first. And I think you just have to prioritize yourself. Go and get your checks, get your annual health checks. The minute you think something is wrong, go and get a diagnosis, and don't settle until you feel like, yep, okay, this makes sense. Get a second opinion if you have to. And I think in your case as well, like,
man, I need to go on Monday.
You need to go. But also, I think it's a great reminder, like, you were waiting because of insurance. Yeah. You know what? Whatever it is, you will find a way to cover it. Like, it'll be okay. But the thing you won't get back is potentially a couple of months or time that could have been put towards whatever, if something is the case. So yeah, I think, look, I hope that people listening, that they take away from this that, go and prioritize yourself. And yeah, I feel like I'm going to get teary thinking of Tammy for a second.
No, that's those, you need to remember that feeling, because that's the reality if you don't go and do something about it.
Yeah. And the people that, you're talking about Lockie, I'm talking about Tammy, and I think the thing that they would want the thing that they would want is for us to take a lesson from them.
Yeah.
On that note, I think...
Go get checked.
Go and get checked. Get your boobs checked. Get everything checked. And make your appointment, Ellie.
Yeah,
please.
I will. I'm going to send a photo of myself booking my appointment on our socials so that you all know that I went.
Good.
Yeah.
And anyone that is interested, please Google OCRF and have a look at what they're doing. Check out Frocktober.
Yeah.
And
or even go and have a frock party.
Absolutely.
Let's just make a frock. We should just do a frock party.
This is, and actually my, so Tammy's little sister Kristen and their amazing mum, my auntie Diana, are hosting a Frocktober party this weekend. And so they've got everyone coming wearing their best dresses. They'll have an event. They have speakers. It's all in service of raising money for OCRF and Ovarian Cancer Research and in Tammy's name. So yes, check it out. Next year I will get around in Singapore to hosting a party.
Yeah.
But
I'll host it with you.
This awesome. This podcast was the next best thing anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Ellie.
And I'm Beck.
And this is the Full Timers Club. See you next time.